A billionaire found his maid studying late at night. What happened next will leave you speechless. It was just past midnight when Jonathan Hale returned to his Manhattan penthouse, exhausted from another round of business meetings that had stretched far beyond dinner. A tech billionaire at just 42, Jonathan was the embodiment of the American dream, visionary, driven, and relentlessly busy. His home, perched atop a skyscraper, overlooked a city that never slept. Yet on most nights, even the sounds of New York softened into a lullaby up here. Tonight, however, something unusual broke the silence, a faint rustling and the low murmur of a human voice. Curious, Jonathan followed the sound through the hallway, expecting perhaps a television left on by security or housekeeping. Instead, he stopped short at the kitchen doorway. There, under the soft golden glow of the stove light, sat Maria, his maid. She was hunched over a kitchen table scattered with notebooks, her lips silently mouthing words as she flipped through pages of a thick biology textbook. She didn't notice him at first. Her focus was intense, brows furrowed in concentration, eyes darting between notes and textbook. A cup of black coffee sat beside her, untouched but long gone cold. She was still in uniform, her apron slightly stained from the day's work. "Maria?" Jonathan said, his voice more curious than stern. Startled, she jumped to her feet, hastily closing the book. I'm so sorry, sir. I thought everyone was asleep. I'll clean this up right away." But Jonathan raised a hand gently. "You're studying?" Her face flushed with embarrassment. "Yes, sir. I take night classes. I didn't mean to intrude. I just needed a quiet place." He paused, taken aback. In all the time she had worked for him, he had never thought to ask about her life outside of work. She was always polite, efficient, almost invisible in her quiet dignity. He had never imagined she was going home every night to study after scrubbing marble floors and polishing crystal chandeliers. "What are you studying?" he asked, moving closer, his voice soft. "Pre-med," she said, barely above a whisper. "I want to become a doctor someday." Jonathan blinked, stunned. Why a doctor?" Maria hesitated, her eyes glancing down at her rough hands, calloused from years of cleaning. "My mother died when I was 16. We couldn't afford treatment. She had cancer, but by the time she was diagnosed, it was too late. I made a promise to myself, to help people like her. People who can't afford to wait." There was something in her voice, a fierce, quiet fire. And in that moment, Jonathan, who had spent years calculating profit margins and market shares, felt something shift. For the first time in a long while, numbers didn't matter. Only people did. "Do you study here often?" he asked. She gave a nervous nod. "Only when I'm too tired to go to the library. I don't have a quiet place at home. I live with my cousins, and it's noisy." He glanced at the clock. "It was almost 1 a.m., and you still come to work at 7. Maria smiled weakly. "Dreams don't wait, sir." He didn't say anything right away. He simply nodded and left the kitchen. The next morning, Maria arrived to find an envelope on the counter with her name written in neat cursive. Inside was a letter. "Dear Maria, I was deeply moved by our conversation last night. Your determination humbles me. I see now that true ambition isn't measured in wealth but in sacrifice and purpose. That said, I want to support your journey. Enclosed is a full scholarship to the university of your choice, covering tuition, housing, books, and living expenses. I've also arranged a leave of absence from your duties here so you can focus entirely on your studies. If you accept, I'll be honored to one day call you Dr. Maria Lopez. P.S. There are millions who need you. Don't let anything stop you." Tears welled in her eyes as the words blurred on the page. She clutched the letter to her chest, sinking slowly into a kitchen chair, unable to move, barely able to breathe. This couldn't be real. No one did things like this. Not for people like her. But it was real. And Jonathan meant every word. Maria accepted the offer. Over the next few years, Jonathan occasionally received handwritten updates, each one more joyful than the last. She graduated with honors, was accepted into medical school, and eventually, true to her word, began working in underserved communities, providing care to those who could not afford it. The story could have ended there. But it didn't. Years later, Jonathan collapsed during a rare visit to one of his rural satellite offices. He was rushed to the nearest hospital. The facilities were humble, nothing like the private medical centers he frequented in the city. But the woman who walked into his room was more competent, confident, and compassionate than any doctor he'd ever met. "Hello, Mr. Hale," she said, smiling gently. "I'm Dr. Lopez. I'll be taking care of you." He looked at her, disoriented at first, and then his eyes widened. "Maria?" She nodded, her eyes glistening. "You saved my life. Now it's my turn." The treatment went well, but something more profound healed that day, not just a body, but a soul. Jonathan had spent a lifetime building companies, accumulating wealth, earning accolades. Yet, in that moment, he realized his greatest investment was not a business venture, it was a young woman with a dream and the courage to chase it. Maria's clinic soon expanded with Jonathan's quiet help. It became a model for community healthcare, staffed by students she mentored, each one inspired by her story. And when people asked Maria how she managed to rise from cleaning floors to saving lives, she would always smile and say, "Someone saw me." That's all it takes to change everything, someone who believes in you when you're still invisible to the world. The world is full of unnoticed dreams. Sometimes, all it takes is one act of kindness to make them shine.